it's great to be with you after another big week. The hype of the Collingwood game and Pendle's record game and Harley's 50th has just calmed down a touch, and now we're all in on taking on Essendon on Sunday night, WA Day the next day, and hopefully we can cap it off with a win, Drew Jones. But I don't think it's going to be as straightforward as many had hoped for at the start of the week, not only because of the axing of Brad Scott, but some other factors as well that we might discuss.
I reckon, Garby, we would have beaten Brad Scott's Essendon by 10 goals at least. They were a listless football team, and then they were struck by injury as well. And I think we're playing great footy. Yeah. I can't remember the last time we've strung together really convincing performances, mature in different ways over the 2 weeks. And just such a great bounce back from where we were only a few weeks ago, where it felt like it was almost a new low. It's been really heartening. And, I've been walking around a bit taller, feeling a bit better about being an Eagles fan.
There is that feeling about us, but I'm a little bit wary of this week. I'm not worried. I don't think that's the right term. I think I'm wary. I do think we'll win because of our personnel quality. But the thing about this Essendon game this week, it's not so much the coach bounce. That's a factor. They're going to come out as a galvanised group, of course. Now, how long that lasts for might well depend on us. But the issue and concern that I've got is we are so used to playing as underdogs, Drew, that when it comes to a situation whereby we're expected to win or have the game on our own terms, we're not very much accustomed to it, and our record, therefore, is not great. So we've lost to Richmond 3 times in the past year, twice at home. Our North Melbourne games have been like really tight affairs. We've won a couple, lost a few. You know, we don't really bode well in this situation because we're not really used to it. And this is another one that's coming up now on the weekend. And we know how Essendon are going to be. They're going to be fierce early. They're going to do what we try and do every week, which is focus purely on pressure and contest. And when you're the team that's meant to win, you have to focus on a few other things as well, which is the way in which you move the ball forward and making sure you take advantage of your opportunities and all those sorts of things. That becomes a firmer focus in the mind rather than just pressure and contest, which has been our sole focus more often than not. So I'm a little bit wary that, perhaps that mindset shift is something we might not be across.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how we handle the game. It sort of felt like the last 2 weeks as underdogs in those games, every player has had a job, and part of those jobs has been to stymie the opposition. There's been some really great coaching by Andrew McQualter and some excellent roles played. There's been great buy-in by the players. I was sort of noting, particularly watching live, it just sort of felt like our ground ball game was in a really good place, and clearly, from a clearance and centre bounce perspective, we've reached a really good area as well. So there's parts of our game that are really going really swimmingly. So hopefully we can just lean on that. And then once again, Minnie goes to work this week, gives the players roles, jobs, even though they're not coming up against superstar players, because Essendon are a bit depleted at the moment with injury and just the fact that they're rebuilding. But hopefully we just go with the same real workman-like attitude and then hopefully let our talented players flourish when we have the opportunity. But the pressure's been the key, hasn't it? That's been our absolute one wood.
Sure, so we've got to apply that again. The issue we've had against the Tigers, for example, is they've sat off us a little bit, let us try and break them down, and then we've fallen short. They've hit us hard the other way, and our defensive game hasn't been as strong because we've struggled with that adjustment of being the favourites, if you like. And we've been caught in transition against a team that's weak and undermanned. So hopefully Essendon doesn't catch us out in the same way. I watched them a few weeks ago against GWS. As bad as they've been overall, they were really good that day, playing just a high-pressure game, sitting off them a little bit. We have to be patient. That's the key. If it's a 2-goal game at halftime or whatnot, we've just got to be calm. I think against the Tigers in recent times, it's been close at halftime and there's been a panic on, we should be smashing them. And then the minute they kick a goal, everyone drops their bundle. Then we kick one and we think we're back and we're home. The emotional fluctuations have been too severe in the game. We're just got to find a way to be calm because I don't expect us, I'd love it to be the case, but there's a real chance we won't be 6 goals up at halftime. It might only be 2 or 3. And we're going to have to work through that and just break them down slowly but surely, and then hopefully the floodgates can open up a bit later.
Yeah, I mean, we showed against Port Adelaide that we can protect the lead. We showed against the Kangaroos we can fight back, stymie momentum and get back into the game. And GWS, similar, right? They came really hard at us after half-time, and we were able to see that off and win the game. So we've shown we can do it in a couple of different ways. But as far as an Essendon threat perspective, I don't think we need to deviate too far from what we've done over the last couple of weeks. I think Hoff should go to Merritt, and I think you pick out a really specific job for Murdoch,
Roberts. Straight to Archie Roberts.
And Roberts is having a really good year. I think it's debatable as to whether he's crucial to the way that Essendon attack from halfback and how they play. I think he gets a lot of the ball and he's a good distributor. But it would make sense that if Murdoch has played that defensive forward role well in the last couple of weeks, then Roberts would be the guy that he goes to. I think Merritt is such a driving force for us and for them, and he always seems to play well against us. So he's the guy that I would love to shut down. But having said that, we've got the most successful midfield group in terms of clearances in the AFL, in Yeo, Kelly, Reid and Williams. They have the most clearances of any foursome in the league. So you don't want to have Hoff breaking up that foursome too much, do you?
No, well, they more often than not, the tagger now doesn't start in the middle. They just pick them up after that first bounce.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't expect Hoffy to go in for the bounce, but then as soon as it breaks up, then he'll go hopefully straight to Merritt. Look, they've still got Merritt and Parrish can win a ball, and Setterfield comes in. He's still a big body, so they've got a few, but the depth is not there. So we should be able to wear them down over the course of the game, and then we've got far more threats in attack and a bit more depth in defence compared to them around the field.
I was just going to say, it's a shame we don't have Starcevic yet this week. He would be such a weapon to have down back because it feels like Jimby's going to have his hands full with Caddy, doesn't it? Which is a bit like, if you're just as a football purist, that's an amazing matchup. 2 incredible young athletes. But Jimby has shown when he plays against, as we talked about after the Cadman matchup, when he plays against another athletic but not necessarily hulking forward, that he really can hold his own. So if we can shut Caddy down, if Jimby can do that job, I think that's almost the difference because Caddy is their wild card, he's their fire starter.
Yeah. Yeah, Langford's a kind of guy who can bob up and still do some damage. So Tyler Young probably goes to him. It's odd that Tyler Young played on Elliott last week, and you look at it and you think, well, isn't Jinby better suited? But I just don't think they trust Tyler Young against like a McStay type, for example. So it might be the same against Caddy. So Ruben will get that assignment, and that's fine. We should be able to cover them defensively. So, we don't know the changes just yet as we're recording this. You get the feeling CDT will come back in and Jack Williams probably makes way, which would be unfortunate for him. He hasn't done too much wrong, but you do get that feeling that'll be the case. And then does a Tommy Gross come in for a Ryan Marrick or something like that? By the time you're listening to this, you'll know the result. But Gross is really close, clearly. The competition for spots is fierce. I looked at it this week and I went, all right, you've got 4 players who are really knocking the door down. That's CDT, Gross. I know Hall's been named, but I didn't have him in that group. McRae, I think, has been going quite well. And then Hewitt. And they're really putting serious pressure on. And then Starcevic to come back, as you mentioned. And then the players who are on there's only 4 players who could possibly go out for them, and that's Williams, who might go out for CDT, Marrick, Harvey Johnston, or Bo Allen, I think would be the only 4 players who could go out. I'd be surprised if Cole got dropped. I think he's playing nicely, but you can't rule it out. So it's a really hard team to break into at the moment because you don't want to put Bo Allen in one week and then drop him out the next. And Harvey Johnston's not doing much wrong. Marrick's maybe someone who's battling to hold on to his spot. Yeah,
and the Harvey Johnson one is complex because we don't have a lot of options to come and play that position who are ready to go. And we didn't really draft a half-forward flanker or a small forward, did we? So in the mid-season draft, which we'll talk about in a moment. So, I haven't minded Harvey Johnston's little stint in the team. I'm interested to see how much more of an opportunity he's given. But with the forecast being wet, 10 to 20 mils, I think, on Sunday in Perth, and of course, I don't know what time of the day all that rain's going to fall. But do you think that may have a bearing on whether they bring in Cooper Duff-Tytler?
Potentially. Looking at the forecast, it looks like wind's a bigger factor than the rain. But then, with the big Optus stands, maybe there'll be some protection and it won't be too bad. But if the rain keeps coming down, they might make another change and maybe another tall goes out and they bring in, an extra small. So that's possible. We'll have to wait and see. But, it does look pretty settled. I like Harvey in the team as well. I think he's got nice skills and nice composure. And, again, you mentioned the midfield, but Bailey Williams just had another big game as we look ahead to the mid-season draft. I guess the other big talking point has been that we didn't take a ruckman in the mid-season draft, despite some speculation we would look at Caleb May, who went to the Bulldogs. And perhaps the word they're getting, and Bailey said it himself in a couple of interviews in the last week, that he wants to stay. There's no games from him. And that's interesting because he's in a really strong position as an restricted free agent where he could play the games a little bit and try and attract some bids and get serious offers. He'll probably get them anyway. But, the fact that he's not suggests that he's all in on staying at West Coast, and hopefully we can tie that contract up sooner rather than later because he is looming as the unequivocal number one ruck choice moving forward.
Well, he's arguably played his two best games of his career in 2 weeks. And he was very good against Geelong in that Norwood game at Gather Round. But yeah, he's just found a sweet spot, hasn't he? And the ruck rules have certainly helped him. He looks fit and strong. He's taking his marks. Like, that's been massive for him to go forward and clunk a few marks. I know Jake Waterman say in a presser earlier this week, he's like, I love it when Bailey comes forward. I said, mate, you can jump on my back if you want. Like, I love seeing him drifting into packs and clunk marks. He has been a weapon. And I was reading that article, which was, I think, AFL Media, where he talked about he's moved out into the hills. He's got his 2 little dogs and he's living a very chilled life away from football. And then goes into beast mode when he gets to the club. And maybe that was a suggestion that perhaps previously he's lived the life a little bit and enjoyed being a footballer in Perth. I don't know. I can't confirm or deny that, but just maybe the wording of it perhaps suggested that he's just calmed things down off field and maybe that's helping him on field. But as we've always said, we put a lot of time and work into Bailey, and he right now is repaying us, and hopefully he signs a new contract and becomes a really competent number one AFL ruckman. And clearly he's benefiting from Nick Naitanui being at the club and being the ruck mentor. He spoke in that article about the 360-degree, learning all the different angles of jumping and where you can tap, and that Nick Nat had a few little drills that he'd been going through and learning a bit more craft. So, yeah, it's all coming together for Bailey, and it couldn't have come at a better time for us because we've just been crying out for someone to just grab that number one ruck role and make it their own.
Well, there's a lot of fans who do need to eat some humble pie. Like, he copped some ridiculous criticism, like stupid stuff. No one was saying that he was the guaranteed number one ruck moving forward. He had some issues, mainly in the centre square, that he had to rectify. And yes, the rules have helped him, no doubt. But I think there's a number of fans who could see there was a player there, and we said that more often than not, that there's something worth persevering with, whereas others just made him a bit of their whipping boy, which was completely unfair. And I think a lot of them maybe they'll just check some of their comments in the future. I mean, they probably won't because that's not the way the world works anymore. But, they should think a little bit harder before they write a player off because it can change very quickly, especially with key position players. So it's just wonderful to see. And he's playing with confidence. He's brimming at the moment. He's bringing the best out of the midfield as well because they can get on the front foot when they know they've got a ruckman who is attacking the ball and in the manner that he is right now. So that led to the mid-season draft. No ruck was taken. So we take Josh Franco's kid with the first pick, Oliver Franco, and then a Marcus Herbert from Geelong. So I think most fans are happy with it. We fill a need in terms of another ball winner. That was something we felt we needed to attract onto our list, someone who can just hunt it and be an inside player, which Franco is. And then I think we just took the best available after that, which was Herbert, who seems like a VFL gun, great leader, not far away from playing at AFL level, as soon as he's asked to.
I think we'll see Herbert pretty soon. He's on a 6-month contract. He's moved over to WA from living in Country Vic and is having a superb season for the Geelong VFL program. And we know that the Cats have been known to hide a few prospects away, sort of down their way, and get them for cheap in the draft. So maybe we've stumbled across one here. Certainly there are other clubs that were interested in Herbert. So he's more of a sort of half-backer, can roll through the midfield type. So I'm interested to see where he fits in and how they use him. But you'd think you get a guy in that age profile on a short-term deal, surely they're going to give him a chance to shine, right?
You would think so. He's going to boost the Waffle team enormously, as will Franco. But I think Herbert gets some games to prove himself. And then, if he only needs a couple of decent performances to earn another deal, and I'm sure that's been explained to him. Franco's got a bit longer. A lot of people asking why we didn't take a key defender. Perhaps they just felt there was no one really up to it. And, although there's not much confidence in Brock, like what's the point in taking someone for 6 months if they're not going to play? Rather wait a little bit and bring someone in like a Herbert who you think, well, hang on a second, this guy can actually be part of our best 23 moving forward. Like there's a bigger chance of that than some of the other key position defenders rolling around in that mid-season draft pool who are very unlikely to get an opportunity unless we have, a shocking injury run, which, touch wood, we won't. So I think it makes sense. Ultimately, if there's no one up to it key position-wise as a back, well then don't waste a pick and take a player like Herbert who looks to be, a level above.
You know what it said to me, Garby? It said we've got a plan. So,
yeah.
I mean, Harry Edwards is back training. So that's a big tick. He had the pink hat on the other day. The best case scenario is that he is feeling great and then we can bring him back into the side and hopefully he can resume his career and move past all these head knocks. But maybe they've got something in the works for next year, whether that's Nathan Broad or whether there's something else going on where they know that they're going to be able to have key back stocks next year. Yeah, if there was someone who out there who was good enough or they felt could play a role straight away, I'm sure they would have done it. But I'm hoping that they've got a bit more in the works and there's some more moving parts that will come together for next year.
Yeah, let's hope so. And there's players that can be shifted around and whatnot. So hopefully we'll be okay there. We can't afford any injuries to Jimby or Young, obviously. But as long as the boy keeps playing as he is, it gives us a bit of confidence down back. He's been superb. I mean, he's just claiming scalps left, right and centre and was good against McStay again. I think he's in the All-Australian squad without a worry, Drew. I think the team might be a little bit of a stretch, but I reckon Jimby's in the All-Australian squad right now.
Yeah, the only reason he wouldn't be in there is due to heavy Vic bias in the squad. That would be my view. But he's having a great year. He continues to show that even though there was some talk about him playing midfield and using those athletic assets, like he is best suited to this key post down back, and I'm glad we committed to it. Just his athletically, his profile, the way that he can contest in the air and then hit the ground and immediately impact at the contest is just so impressive. It's great to watch, and I can't wait to see him go against Caddy this week. So the Harley Reid article was interesting. So Cal Toomey's obviously done really well to sort of he's built that relationship with Harley sort of through junior footy and gets a really nice exclusive with him for the AFL website. So a couple of things I picked up. I'll get your views on it as well. But he spoke about the relationship he's got with Minnie, and it seemed like it's a really positive one, even to the point where he told that sort of little story where after fending off Pendlebury, he ran, like when he ran to the bench for his rotation, he was saying to McQualter, "Did you see that?" So they obviously have that, that nice relationship where they celebrate, Harley's strengths, and that all seems really positive. I really liked this. I've actually isolated on my laptop in front of me so I can read it. Talking about how he bought his own home and he feels really settled in it. He's got a fire pit and a pool. Yeah. He's got a shed for all his toys, and he said he's
Yeah.
He's built a man cave, and on the walls inside, he's got a West Coast Guernsey. He's got a LeBron jersey. He's got 2 Tongala jumpers as a tribute to 2 of his mates from home who he lost in a plane crash.
Yeah.
That sentimental, that loyal side, that loving part of Harley, I think, isn't necessarily something that we see or is talked about.
Yeah.
And he's also got a match-worn Liam Baker, which I love, and I think that really shows that relationship has been cultivated between him and Liam. I think is really valuable for him to have Baker to lean on, for the co-captain and Harley Reid, who's our best player, to have that relationship. I think there's, they clearly are friends, but there's also a respect there for the way that Baker goes about it and being a pro. I think, it was really, really nice thing to read, and the fact that he had like a 12-year contract offer from Hawthorn and all that sort of stuff, which was just totally crazy. But he chose to be loyal and stay at West Coast, and he believes in the process. I think that's really great.
Yeah, I guess the theme for me that came through was that he hasn't rejected anything. Like, there was this feeling around Harley for a little bit, maybe at the start of last season, that he was a problem for the club, that they were trying to get through to him and he wasn't interested. I mean, some of the comments, you could go back and look at him now, and they're just been made to look ridiculous. He's basically playing his own game and he wants to do it his way and all that sort of stuff. And it's just not the case at all. Like, he's meeting with the psychologist and listening to people about keeping his cool on the field and all in with Minnie and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I think that's all been made to be absolute nonsense. And he's been really calm in dealing with all of that. And the only thing that came out in terms of, struggling with Perth life now is that he just wears a hoodie when he goes to the shops and that's it. But all that stuff around Harley can't walk outside and it's all too much for him, that's really simmered down, which I think has been really pleasing as well.
Yeah, I think a little bit of the Harley mania probably has just cooled, and that's great. It's good for him. And the West Australian have played their part. They've relaxed a little bit, which is good. And that relationship is building, or has already built with Will Dersmer, I think is flourishing, and they're living together, and I think that's all going really well. He sort of pointed out in the article that he thinks that Dersmer's not getting enough attention right now. I just wanted to make special mention of him on the podcast because it was the first time that I've got to see him play live. And geez, he's impressive, Garby. Like, he has a presence on the field, the way he moves, the positions that he gets into. Like, when he receives the ball in space, he takes ground in front of him. Like, it's effortless the way he moves, those big long strides, and his skills are exquisite. We have got a player. Like, I know we already knew that, but just seeing him up live, up close, just reiterated to me, like, he is a proper special footballer talent.
Yeah. Well, I just think about what he's going to be like in 2-3 years. Like, we say that about all young players, but you really imagine him when he's never going to be big, but when he gets that real strength, my goodness, he's going to be so imposing on the field. It is a bit Bont-like, I think.
The combination of the pure, like, Harley is, like, tough. Like, he fends people off, his power, his brute force. But Dersmer's got a bit more finesse, even though he's a pretty big guy, even though, like you say, he's lightly framed. But it's this beautiful combo. It's like we've got a muscle car and a Lamborghini. Like, we've got, or a Maserati. Like, there's someone who is a real smooth mover, and there's someone who could go in a demolition derby. And so it's this amazing combo. We've got 2 of the best young midfielders in the competition. Like, it's awesome.
So, now that you've spoken about the Collingwood game, tell us about the photo you had with the team before the game.
Yes, I couldn't wait to talk about this. So, the worst part about this is that I wasn't there. So, but it also makes the story better. So,
I thought you took a photo. I was like, why are you getting in?
Yes, it would. Of course, I would have loved to have been in the photo. But also, there's a world where it doesn't happen if I was there, because I think just the nature of our jobs, Garby. I think I don't see an AFL player and think, I want to get a photo with them, even if they're a West Coast player.
No.
Like, they're this. In some ways, they're colleagues. You're respecting their space, all that sort of stuff. So it's always been that's always complex for us. I think if I got a photo with Theo Walcott because it's like I'm an Arsenal fan and it's a bit of a novelty that a Premier League player would be in Australia, but for an AFL player,
you're removed from it. Yeah.
So I was at the VFL. Working for Fox Footy, which is very unusual for me to be working on a Saturday morning. And so West Coast they were staying at the Como Hotel, which is quite close to where I live in South Yarra in Melbourne. And then our local park is called Rockley, which is next to the South Yarra Library. And it's not the first time that we've seen the Eagles players out on walks around South Yarra when they've played at when they've stayed at Como and played at the G. And so they were all congregating together, all 24 players, and they were just doing like a little hit and giggle. They had a few different footies. They had soccer balls and tennis balls. They were just mucking around basically. And Izza walked past with Max in the pram, and Max sort of was craning his neck to like look at these 24 lads who were throwing balls around, and so he was quite intrigued as to what was going on. Izza had no idea that it was the Eagles. And then she saw Harley Reid and was like, oh, that's Harley Reid. But she didn't say Harley Reid. She said, that's Bailey Smith. Because I think, possibly they're the same person. Anyway, but she knew, but she looked at Harley and said, that's an Eagles player. But in her head, it was Bailey Smith. Izza knows nothing about footy. She comes from a Polish family who have no idea about AFL. Anyway, she walked over to the Kyle Wheeler, who it was his last game as the runner against Collingwood. He's now gone to WA Cricket. Now, I know Kyle quite well. We played footy together, and a friend of mine from Perth. But Kyle hasn't met Izza, so she walked over to Kyle, said, are you the Eagles? And he's like, yes, we are the West Coast Eagles. And Izza was like, oh, that's amazing. Max is going to his first game today. My partner goes for West Coast. We're really excited we're going to the G. And so to Kyle's credit, he was like, oh, that's awesome. Do you want to get a photo with the boys? And he was able to organise all the guys to come in and get the photo. So it's all 24 players. Even like Tom Cole, you can see his little face pointing through at the back. So everyone's in it. Minnie wasn't there. I did text Minnie the photo and said, did you opt out? He said, no, I wasn't there with the boys, but enjoy the game. And yeah, it was just, I was just sitting there at, trying to concentrate on the VFL game, and basically the entire first quarter at Windy Hill I spent on my phone because it was just, it was a really nice moment.
That's emotional.
Yeah, and it really meant a lot to me that most of the players were smiling and that they went in for a photo.
Yeah.
Because that's something that our family will cherish now. Like, we can have that photo framed, and Max's, hopefully his allegiances are going to be with West Coast, and really nice moment before his first game.
Very cool. Great story. How long on the clock we got, mate, by the way?
Stand by. We've got... I actually can't see the clock. So yeah, let's just roll for a couple more minutes.
We'll roll until it cuts us out. Fantastic story. On what was a great day. We played really well. Look, we was mature. It was there for the taking. Shame we didn't win it. But the umpiring decisions, a few went against us. The day cost reversal, does that happen to an Eagles player? I'd say very, very unlikely, let's be honest.
No.
The Pendles carrying it over the line. The Dacos throw, it's obviously a blatant throw. I'm trying to give the umpire some leeway that maybe he didn't have a view of it. Other than that, it's a shocker. We were always going to be up against it from the umps, and that probably did have a bit of a say in things at the end. But, to be honest, we don't lose much by not winning. Does that make sense? It would have been great to win. And the players know they've got to change this mentality quickly and start winning these games, but they still gained a shitload from it.
Yeah, we're not going to look like... Yeah, it would have been a famous victory, but I'm still proud of the way that they played. There was 95,000 in the house. It was basically like playing in a final. It was extremely unique situation. It's the biggest home and away club crowd they've ever played in front of. And I think was it the biggest crowd outside of a grand final that we've ever played in front of. So a very unique situation, and they really did handle it well. There were lots of moments where players stood up and, I don't think we got the rub of the green. I think that's clear, and you've pointed out, most of the circumstances, and I'm sure there were more. But that was probably always going to happen, and maybe we've had that advantage go our way in the past at Subiaco, on those big games at Subi. So I'm not that inclined to be too upset about it, except for the fact that clearly, Daicos is a protected species. But, it didn't go our way, but we still played great footy. We're in it right until the end, and we really... it was just so great. I just felt proud that there was going to be a lot of eyes of the football world on the game, and we showed how much progress we've made. And our young players played well, and our veterans who were trying to bounce back and have a great last part of their career, they all played well as well. It was really good.
So the only interesting talking point was the decision not to hard tag Daicos and tag Pendlebury. I didn't think Minnie would go that way. Now, his explanation made sense, that he wanted to actually take the sting out of the crowd by keeping Pendles quiet. And I think it had a big bearing on the game. I think it worked to a large extent because when you were there, but watching at home, the crowd seemed very quiet, considering the size of it. And our ability to control the game helped that as well for large periods. But that worked in a sense, but Daicos is still the best player on the ground and wins them the game. But maybe he's untaggable, Drew. So maybe you think, well, what's the point in tagging him because he's still going to hurt you? Take Pendles out of it. Maybe that was the better move. I'm undecided.
Yeah, I loved the thinking, and it made a lot of sense. And, geez, there were times where it was almost silent. The crowd, the Collingwood crowd at no stage when they were going to that game saw a world where the Eagles would win. And we were in the game, apart from when they got that run on in the third quarter, we were in the game or controlled the game for a large portion. So I think it worked really well. But yes, if you take out that goal that Daicos kicks from the pocket, that was sort of his defining moment in the match. Yeah, he was influential. If you took out that goal, he did go off because someone trod on his foot, apparently. So it was interesting. It's always a risk to let Daicos run free, but it also just means you're backing your guys to do some damage going the other way, which we were able to do to a certain extent.
Yeah. Harley and Yo seemed a little bit sore. I hope they're over that. Yo had an influence up forward, but he didn't go through the midfield as much. So, considering that, still did really well, and hopefully they rested up nicely to take on the Bombers and have a win there, mate. Been a good chat, lots of things to talk about, and let's hope it's a big WA day with a victory over Essendon.
Absolutely. I'd love to see CDT come back into the side, and then we're not far away from getting Starcevic in. I think we're a big chance to get a couple of more wins over the next few weeks the way we're playing. So it's a nice time to be an Eagles fan. Let's enjoy it.
That it is. Thanks, mate. Good stuff.